In our parasha, Devarim, which is read on the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av, Shabbat Chazon, Moshe revises the history of the Jewish people in the wilderness, and he says, Eicha esa levadi, torchachem masachem v'ribchem. I said to you at that time, Moshe reminds the Jewish people, how can I bear torchachem, your bothersomeness, masabchem, your load, v'ribchem, and your quarrels? How can I deal with all of the problems that the Israelites piled upon me? They were difficult, they were complainers, they were non-believers. How could I handle it by myself? And then he reminds them about how Hashem told him to put together a group of judges. But what is this expression, Eicha? Eicha esa levadi. How can I bear by myself this burden? And the Midrash points out that there were three great spiritual leaders who all prophesied with the word Eicha. The first one was Moshe, as we see in our parsha. And then there was the prophet Yeshayahu, Isaiah. That's this week's parsha, this week's Haftorah. And then there was the prophet Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, who wrote the book of Lamentations. And the book of Lamentations in Hebrew is called Eicha. Eicha Yashva Badad. How is it that this great city, Jerusalem, is now sitting alone? And that word Eicha appears many, many times in the book of Lamentations. What does it mean? It's commonly translated as how. How can it be? How is it possible that such an incredible city is now empty of all of its inhabitants? Or like Hashem says, or like Moshe says, how is it possible that I can bear all of your burdens by myself? But the Midrash tells us that the word Eicha is a Loshen Kinna. It's an expression of woe, of an elegy, of a cry. And where do we see this? We see this in the fall of the first man, in the beginning of the Torah, where Adam and Chava consume the forbidden fruit, and then they hide in the garden, and they try to cover their nakedness. And Hashem calls out to the man, and he says, Ayeka, where are you? Ayeka, where are you? And the Midrash points out that the word Ayeka, which means where are you, can be divided up into two words. Oy lecha, woe to you. Woe to you, man. You were the pinnacle of creation, and look how you have fallen. And then when he says to man, have you eaten from the fruit? Man blames woman. He blames Chava, Eve. And when he asks Chava, she blames the snake. No one's taking responsibility. The word Ayeka means, where are you? Hashem speaks to us. Moshe, the prophet Isaiah, the prophet Jeremiah. They speak to us and they say, Eicha, Oilecha, woe to you, Ayeka, where are you? How is it that you have fallen so low? We live in a society, we live in an age where no one is prepared to take personal responsibility. I did this, I misbehaved because of my background, because of society, because of somebody who did this, because I was offended, because I was discriminated against, whatever it may be, there's always an excuse. Hashem and these great men, Moshe and Yeshayahu and Yirmiyahu, tell us to look within ourselves. Ayeka, where were you? What was your responsibility? Tisha B'Av, as the sages explained, yes, it was the Babylonians who destroyed the first temple. It was the Romans who destroyed the second temple. But they only brought about its physical destruction. The spiritual destruction of those temples was because of the sins of the Israelites. They have to look inside themselves. And we have to do some soul searching. And that's what Tisha B'Av is about. To look inside ourselves as individuals, as communities, as the Jewish nation. What have we done wrong? And when we can find what we've done wrong, and we can identify it and we can work on it, that's when we will bring about the Geula Shlema, the full and final redemption. And I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and a meaningful fast, please God, the last of the Tisha B'Av fast that we ever have to fast.